Alright, welcome to module number 3, and in this particular module we're going to be discussing how you can go about getting your well-oiled marketing and selling machine of a band into the clubs. And this is where the rubber really hits the road, and it doesn't matter whether you're in the hip-hop, rock, punk, jazz, or whatever genre music that you play. It doesn't even matter if your music doesn't really fit in any of the mainstream genres or how out there it may be. The simple fact is that the music industry has gone and done something that, in my opinion, is pretty stupid, but with a little creativity, you can go about changing it to work in your favor. Now, clubs and venues have been working on the premise that the standards that have been working for them for years are kind of okay, and to put it very simply, they're cool with okay. But as a progressive music marketing band, just okay isn't really going to cut it for you. And maybe your average band is happy settling into a comfortable standard that's been set by these music business dinosaurs, I like to call them. And maybe they're happy playing the roles that clubs and venues have previously established for them. But you're in this business to make money and to be a rock star. And hey, there's absolutely nothing wrong with wanting to be the best. And that's exactly what you're going to achieve by following the details outlined in this course. You're going to position yourself as the band to hire and have play in their clubs. And by following what I'm going to be laying out for you, the rules that they've put in place to keep bands like you in a docile yes sir, no sir attitude or position aren't really going to be applying to your circumstances anymore. Now, you and I both know that getting money out of club owners to pay for you to play in their club can kind of be like pulling out teeth for most of them. And more often than not, they're going to tell you things like they don't ever pay more than $500 for a band to play in their club. But the honest truth is that they seem to be able to find the cash to pay the big bands that pass through town that same $1,500 that they're asking for. So knowing this, you can understand that there's a formula that you can use to ask for and get those paychecks that the big bands are pulling in. And the object of this particular module, Find Me in the Club, is to show you that secret formula those big bands are using so you can get paid the big bucks to play in those same clubs and venues as well. And in this section of the course, I'm going to be showing you how to package yourself into higher paying gigs that clubs and venues will gladly pay you for. And I mentioned earlier in the first module that price negotiation is a lose-lose situation. If you find yourself in the position of haggling the price, then you've already lost and it just becomes a bad situation from that point forward. So it's imperative that you don't position yourself in a situation where it comes down to price negotiations. Now, the reason for this is that if you do win, and you get the money that you're asking for, even if you accept a little less than your initial request, but more than what the club owner was willing to offer you, then you both end up losing anyway. And this can hurt you long into the future and your future dealings with that particular club. If you remember back in the first module again, I talked about how this is a repeat business. And if you can't get repeat jobs, then you're probably not going to make much money in this industry. And as a result, your band isn't going to end up lasting very long. Now, the reason I mention this because the situation I just talked about where you either got what you wanted up front because you adamantly stood your ground and the club maybe didn't have anyone else to play the venue on such short notice, or if you haggled enough and he came down a little but not to the point that he really wanted to, the club owner is going to have a bad taste for your band left in his mouth, and the odds of him asking you to come back and play again are going to be pretty slim. Not to mention the fact that you may feel that he's taking advantage of you by making you take less than what you think your band is worth. So again, a lose-lose proposition, and that's not going to be good for anyone. So this is where your perceived value really becomes important. The intangible elements that you bring to the table really start to matter at this point. And you've got to understand that this is just business and the club owner isn't really trying to screw you out of money. It's just that this is how he's been doing business for so long that he really doesn't know how to deal with you any differently. And it's up to you to bring to light what it is that gives your band a much higher level of perceived value than any other band that's trying to work their way into his club. So this leaves you with a golden opportunity to educate and make your band shine. And as the marketing expert that you're becoming as a result of this course, you've got to put some of the business savvy that you're learning into action, and you got to dictate your price and then justify it with value-added benefits to the club owners and the venues you're looking to get your band into. And these are the things that they're interested in. Validate your reasons for asking for so much more money than the average band, and you'll find that once you've given the club owner a valid reason to pay you what you're asking for, he'll be more than willing to, at the very least, consider paying you what you want. This is where you can demonstrate some of the reasons that you really are worth the money you're asking for, how you're different from all the other local bands and jokers that are constantly trying to get into his club, but who don't really have their marketing act together. Now think about some of the questions a club owner is going to be asking himself while he's discussing what he'll end up paying you to play in his club. If you get this right, then you can answer all of his objections before he can come up with reasons not to pay what you're asking for, right? So things like, what do these guys do that other bands don't? And before he asks you, you can start listing what it is you bring to the table that most bands fail to. Things like your list of 200 fans, and that you can generally bring in at least 60 to 70 people out to each show that you do in town. He'll also be asking, how many more tickets will they sell? And you know that you're going to market the crap out of any show that you do wherever you do it. So not only will you bring in the 60 or so fans from your personal mailing list, but you'll also pull in at least another 10 to 20 with the marketing blitz that you're going to be putting on. Then he's going to be thinking to himself, how will these guys fill the club? But you already know that you're bringing in your own fans, and if you really want to impress this guy, because it's the big club in town, you can throw in the fact that you'll be offering a set number of free CDs to the first 20 or 30 people to get to the club, or whatever you may be comfortable with. If it's not CDs, then maybe it's going to be signed posters or autographed band shots. And then finally, of course, he's going to be thinking, what's this going to cost me? Now remember, this guy is used to working with bands that don't market and rarely, if ever, fill the club other than the regulars that come into the club all the time anyway. So the reality is you're going to be a breath of fresh air for this guy. He doesn't know that yet, and everything in his past and all of his instincts are stacking up against you. So it's imperative that you make sure that he understands how good you are at marketing your band and bringing people into the clubs that you play in. So what do most bands bring to the table when trying to get a gig at a club or a venue? Well, the one thing that all bands, or maybe I should say most bands, bring to the table is their talent and their time. But that's not really going to set you apart from anyone else because, let's face it, these are a given. That's what's expected from every single band. It's your job to be as ready as you can be, to practice 3 or more times every week, and to hone your skills to the best of your ability. And some bands have some added benefits on top of their talent, but most don't. Most bands generally play the same music, a lot of the same songs, and unless they're totally original, they'll probably play 3 to 4 originals in a night, right? So there's really not that much difference between most bands that the club or venue owner has to choose from. And because of this, he's generally going to select the band that brings in the biggest draw, the one who's going to end up making him the most money for the night, including drinks and the door cover charges. And he's probably going to be pretty comfortable paying out his regular $400 because that's what he's used to. And if he can make at least $2,500 to $3,000 a month doing this, then cool. He can pay his mortgage, he can put food on the table, and he can walk around town saying that he runs his own club. All fine and dandy for him. So let's get real for a second and really dig into what a club owner really needs from your band. Now, the reality of what it is they want from you might be a little harsh, but I didn't start the course off pulling any punches, and I'm not going to start that now. So what every club owner really wants and needs from a band is nothing more than 4 guys who can play some decent music. And that's really as deep as it gets. He doesn't care whether you've got fancy guitars, what your band name is, or if you shake your ass like Elvis, or even if you've got guitar solos that can make Hendrix turn in his grave. That's not what he's concerned with. Let's face it, club owners are really simple people. They don't need much when it comes to their club entertainment, something to entertain the people who are paying to get in. And if you happen to fit the bill and you're willing to take that measly $400 he's willing to shell out, then you're in. So what is it that's going to make him choose you, the guys who charge $1,500 a pop, over some other 4 guys who play some decent music and are willing to take that piddly $400? Well, for starters, if you can bring in more people to the club than the other bands, then that's a +1 in your corner. And if they buy enough drinks, and if you can do it regularly, then he might consider having you in on a regular basis. So it hasn't got anything to do with looks, fancy guitars, light shows, or even talent, because let's face it, we've all been to clubs where the band has been less than good, and they bring a lot of people out to their shows all the time, and they get gigs all the time. You and I know it's got nothing to do with talent in these situations. So we know that talent doesn't matter, looks don't matter, and the glitter and glam of rock stardom isn't going to make one iota of difference to the average club owner. And the bottom line is that they've been using the same formula for over 20 years, and it's no wonder they keep getting the same old lame-o results. Paying half-ass bands a measly $400 per show isn't really going to make those bands market themselves any better, and it's not going to get them out there into the community working on getting on the radio and television and possibly mentioning their club on the air. But your band is different. You're going to rock the boat. You're going to be different than the average band. So how are you going to go about doing this? How is it that your band is going to be different? And what is it that you bring to the table that other bands don't? See, if you can answer this question to the club owner during your negotiations, and you can make your case compelling enough with enough leverage to support your claims of bringing him more money per show with your band, then you can get in and really dictate what you make in every single club you approach. Now, it's a given that you've got to show up on time, not get drunk, that you treat the customers with respect, and that you give more than what you get paid for. You're already doing all those things anyway, right? Because if you aren't, you're probably already behind in the game and you're leaving a lot of money on the table, because these simple things are what the good bands are already doing. So you have to make sure that you get these covered right away. And then you've got to show the club owners that you're willing to work harder and push more, and that you really want to succeed more than every other band out there. You're also going to want to demonstrate to him that you also want him to be as successful as you. And this is really important, because if you can get across that message to him that you want to make more money and you're willing to work harder than anyone else to help him do the same, then he's going to look at you a lot differently, and his level of respect is going to be a lot higher for you in terms of you doing business with him. And once you've shown you can deliver on everything that I've just laid out, and you get yourself into his mental good books, then that's when it's time for you to offer to help him make some more money, and that anything over what he makes now should be worth you getting a higher paycheck. Now, up to this point, I haven't really discussed exactly how you're going to get the club owner to give you more money, but at the same time, I've been slowly laying out the foundation for your discussions with club owners that, if you use properly, they're going to lead you down a conversational path to actually getting to the point where you're asking for exactly what it is you want from the club owner, while also being in a strong position mentally to stand your ground while asking for what it is you really want. And this is important because even though I'm walking you through all the situations you need to be prepared for and the questions that you're undoubtedly going to have to deal with, when it comes to money, a lot of people get a little weirded out and don't really know how to be firm and really stick to what it is they'd set out to ask for from the beginning. So I don't want this to be you, and the more prepared you are when approaching clubs, the better your conversations with club owners are going to be, and it's going to end up being much easier for you to ask for what it is you really want for your gigs.